Alright, untapped land to slam this Titan. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have the, oh, Pithing Needle kind of sucks here. Oh, we can't even cast it because of our opponent's Chalice. Cool. Hello and welcome, guys. We are here for the fresh new league with the list that you see on screen. This time, we are trying to go fast and hard. We are trying to get these Titans into play. We are not messing around with Arboreal Grazers for the slightly worse ramp when compared to Sakura Tribe Scout. If you get 2 activations out of Scout, then that's a turn 3 Titan, much easier than just getting a single land out of Grazer. So that's one change we've made, and we've also cut the Expedition map in favor of playing a more streamlined deck list. We have a second Azusa here in the main, and we're not messing around. This list is designed to just slam Titan as fast as possible, even though the changes are very slight. And of course, we do have the Grazers in the sideboard for those aggressive red matchups, especially against opponents playing Lava Dart in particular. But against decks with removal where we'd rather have Grazer instead, we do have access to it. And additionally, I'm playing 1 copy of Endurance. This is a super expensive, both in paper and online, mythic, the elemental flash reach, evoke by exiling a green card from your hand. When it comes into play, target player puts all the cards from their graveyard on the bottom of their library in a random order. So, of course, the idea behind this one is that it's very good against graveyard decks like Living End, for example. You can potentially pack for it and evoke it out for free, and then use a Tribe Scout on your upkeep in combination with an Amulet to still pay for your pack trigger, something along those lines. But obviously, Endurance is also going to be very good against specifically the card Dragon's Rage Channeler, the 1/1 that grows if they have Delirium, which is obviously reliant on their graveyard. If you flash in an Endurance and then block their Channeler, the likelihood is that their 1/1 creature just dies. So that's the idea behind Endurance, but I'm mainly playing it today. But I must say, I am mainly playing it today because this list is not a list that I put together on my own. There are some slight changes from the source, which I'll show you in a minute, but I'm mainly playing this Endurance today just to show you guys you don't really need access to this card. If you can't afford Endurance, if you can't buy it online or in paper, don't fret, because honestly, I think even with 1 Endurance, this has no impact on the mill matchup. I can tell you that firsthand from my experiences, but I also think this is not really going to make our matchup against Living End very much better. In fact, the only reason why I think it's even reasonable in this list is because, specifically against Living End, we do have access to Tribe Scout to be able to potentially pay for an early pack. Grazer lists certainly can't do that, and in those cases, Endurance might as well be a 3-mana, 3/4 flash reach, which is still good, don't get me wrong, but it is not a $50 card if you're trying to buy it on Magic Online or however much it costs in paper. So, and speaking of online versus in paper, I do want to mention that I will be including the deck list for this deck and all the other decks that we play in the future in the description of this video. So let's jump over to the comment section real quick so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. So on my previous league, I received 2 requests. One from the user Hitpoint, which is the reason why we're playing the list that we're playing today. They said you should try and brew a list similar to the Fast Amulet list they had on Titan Talk, episode 45 in particular. And that is the inspiration for this list, part of it at least. And then additionally, I received a comment regarding deck lists and being able to see the deck list, as it's a little difficult to see in the videos, even in the start when I'm talking about the deck list. So this is not the only comment that I've received in regards to that, but I've also received comments in the past, and I'm deciding to make that change for you guys. So I will be including the deck list for this list and any future lists in the video's description, along with other things such as the links to the first matches and the previous leagues and things along those lines. So if you're looking for any information, then check the description below. That's where it all will be. And in particular, I'm going to be using MTG Goldfish to link deck lists. Not because I'm sponsored or anything by MTG Goldfish, I just think that it's the best platform to do so. I would potentially use tappedout.net, for example, for deck lists, but in the past they've had issues with redirects and stuff, and I don't want to expose any of you guys who are watching my videos to any kind of malicious intent, so we're going to go with MTG Goldfish. And that brings me to the actual deck list that we're playing today. It is based off of this list that you see on screen by Yusa Monitz. This list has a lot of things that are going on that are very similar. I've only made a few subtle changes. The first one is cutting one of the 2 fetch lands for a 4th copy of Castle Garenbrig, because obviously if you're playing Scouts and you're trying to play Titan as fast as possible, and you're playing Sagas and Azusas in order to use Castle Garenbrig to cast a Titan on turn 3, all these things and more make me want the 4th Garanbrig quite badly for this list, so I decided to make that cut. And then, yeah, I think that's really the only main difference. Perhaps we're playing a 3rd Explosives. Let me go check. Yes, we are playing a 3rd Engineered Explosives in the sideboard as well, over 1 Force of Vigor. That is because I found that Force of Vigor, in particular, is not usually quite good enough against the Hammer Time deck list, believe it or not, because oftentimes your Force is going to cost you a card that would otherwise have helped you get Primeval Titan into play, and additionally, your opponent can easily rebuild if you give them enough time, if they just put Lurrus in their hand, play Lurrus, and get back whatever you blew up with Force of Vigor, particularly against Hammer Time. That's where I'm thinking. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, I've found Explosives to be quite good in the Hammer Time matchup particularly, but also against other opposing decks playing lots of 1-drops like Prowess, for example, the Death Shadow decks. I've just found Explosives to be quite good right now. In fact, I considered playing one in the main. And those are the only real changes. Again, if you want to see the deck list, check the link in the description. But yeah, I just wanted you guys to know that this list comes from Yusumo Neats. And I do have one final thing to say before we jump into the match here, which is I was considering playing a red-green Titan Shift list on the channel this week, but I'm not 100% sure that that's something that I want to do. But let me know if that's something that you guys want to see. If you want to see this deck in action or something quite similar, then go ahead and show your support in the comments below for a red-green Titan Shift league. And that is all I'm going to say about it. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump straight into the match. Alrighty, let's hop in here. Hopefully that intro wasn't too long for you guys. Had a couple things to talk about, announcements to make. It will be on the play, which is obviously great for us. And we have a turn 1 Scout. And this actually lets me bring up an important interaction that comes up with Scout. Some people will say that one of the best things this deck can do, obviously we're keeping this by the way, is play a turn 1 Grazer and put Saga into play so that it ticks up to 2 immediately the turn after. But actually, the same thing can be done with Tribe Scout. You just have to activate the Scout in your upkeep. And then when you go to draw step, your Saga will tick up to 2 as it enters on 1, and then you go to draw, and Saga triggers on the end of draw step, if I'm not mistaken. So if you put a Saga into play at instant speed on your upkeep using Tribe Scout, then you actually get the same effect as Grazer putting Saga into play on turn 1. So that is, of course, why we're playing the turn 1 Scout here. Hopefully it survives. If not, then we'll be able to play Saga, turn 3 Dryad, turn 4 Titan, most likely. So it's not really the biggest deal. And if our opponent is playing a deck that wants to remove our Scout, then this puts them in the awkward position of either playing a turn 1 creature or killing the Scout, which is nice. So here we'll use the neat little trick that I mentioned. We're going to go ahead and pop this Saga straight into play. And we even have the untap source to play a Dryad on turn 2 here as well, so that's nice. And here in our draw step, you'll see this says ticked up to 2. Fantastic. We even have a second Amulet to go here, so, I mean, we kind of just have it all. Obviously, we're going to commit our Dryad, play the castle, and next turn get a second Amulet and just, like, go crazy. Just to absolutely ruin our opponent. We'll have tons of mana, too, thanks to the Scout still being in play. So, even if our Dryad dies, we still have a really crazy upcoming turn here. So, obviously, we're going to keep the bounce land in hand. Here's a Dryad. Here's the Garanbrig. Once this Dryad resolves, of course. And we'll see what our opponent has. Maybe they hold up Counterspell or something here. That would be kind of tragic. We could play around that even by activating Scout in response to the Saga trigger and putting in a bounce land, activating it, and then picking up the Saga if we really wanted to. Cavern on Merfolk. Interesting. So we're playing against Merfolk. With Fairy Conclave, that's kind of strange. I wouldn't have expected Fairy Conclave in a Merfolk deck, but... Right, Tide Shaper. Yeah, that one's kind of annoying. I mean, we're still going to have Titan this upcoming turn thanks to what we have going on here. But we're very lucky to have drawn a second Amulet in that case. Or, well, I guess the first Amulet, now that we're not getting one from Saga. Right, we'll draw. And yeah, our opponent is probably just dead here. I haven't done the math, but it's most likely that they're just going to end up not surviving this turn. So, and here we can do another thing that I like to do frequently, which is leave a white floating and activate Castle Garenbrig. So we can use the white along with a Valcut in order to activate Slayer Stronghold in here instead of having to get Boros Garrison. So because of that, our opponent is almost certainly dead, unless they have some 0 mana spell like Subtlety or something. Yeah, I'm just going to pick up the bounce lane here because I don't see a reason to do anything different. Bounce lane in hand is always a good thing. Sometimes you have to leave them in play to pay for pack triggers and such, but... yeah, I mean, it's Subtlety or bust here, pretty much. So, of course, when this Titan enters the battlefield, we're going to get Valcut and Slayer Strong. They do have subtlety. So the line would be Valcut and Slayer Stronghold. Amulet untaps both, and we haste our Titan. Well, I mean, they got us with the subtlety, I guess. We'll put that one on top, of course. We definitely do want that one. And we'll swing with the Dryad and pass it back, I guess. They exiled a Silvergill Adept here. Makes sense. I guess our opponent's name is Fighting Fish, huh? Maybe it should have caught on to that one. I guess we could have played a second scout there by activating and putting in the bounce land. I don't know why I didn't do that. That would have been a good idea. I guess this plays around them having... No, actually, holding up scout doesn't really play around anything. If they, like, tried to spreading seas our Garenbrig, for example, it actually would have no impact. Like, here's a second Tide Shaper. We really don't care about this, so we'll let it go. Yeah, that's fine. It's just an island, so we're not going to be able to tap it for any color with the Dryad ability, which is kind of interesting to me. Alright, we'll untap here. We'll top deck the Titan we put right there. Boom. Right, let's start by playing out our 2-land drops with Dryad, and then we can activate Scout and leave whatever colors of mana we need to floating, and do the same thing we did last turn, and hope our opponent doesn't have another subtlety. We'll just float with everything. That way our opponent doesn't know what we're about to pick up. Hehehe. No! I guess we're activating Scout to put in the Garenbrig, because I meant to float with the Sanctuary, but... oh well. This works just fine as well. It's costing us bounce land in hand, but to be honest, we're probably just winning the game here, so it probably doesn't matter. It could, but probably doesn't. Unless our opponent has a 1-mana interaction spell here. I don't know what they could even have. Dismember wouldn't even do it because they have to kill the Dryad also, so... yeah, I'm just going for it. I guess they could have that, like, 1-mana spell from Modern Horizons, Suspend? Perhaps? I'm not playing around anything here. If they had 2 mana up, that would be a different story, because then we'd have to worry about them having Merfolk Trickster to tap our Titan, but, yeah, not really worried about that when they only have 1 mana up, so we'll just swing with... let's not swing with the Dryad, I don't think, actually. And here we'll hit yes, and we'll get second Valcut for sure. And the other one doesn't have to be like a third Valcut or something. It could be fetch land. That doesn't really do a whole lot, though, because they would still be forced to kill the Dryad. We could get Talari West, just in case they can answer our Dryad, take some damage from the Titan, but not be dead, and then answer Titan this upcoming turn. Or it could even just be a Saga for that reason, so we have something extra to do. It's worth noting, though, that not playing the Expedition map means that we can't use Saga to set up a Talari West here, which is one downside of not playing the map. I think I'm inclined to just go for lethal, actually, and not play around them having removal, because we don't really have a great way of doing it. If we get Talari West, then we have to draw a Simic Growth Chamber in order to pick it up and transmute it, assuming they kill the Dryad, and then kill the Titan. And if we get the Saga, it doesn't really take us anywhere, so I'm just going to go straight for lethal. I guess we'll just do, let's see, if we get Vesuva, that'll be 2 lands entering times 3 Valakut's in play is 6 total triggers, which is exactly 18 damage, plus the 8 that we have already coming. If we get a fetch land and they kill the Dryad in response, then I guess that would be no triggers anyways. But then we'd have fetch land in play in case we draw another Dryad, I guess. So if they don't kill the Dryad in response, and they take the 2 lands times 2 Valakut's is 4 triggers of damage, which is 12. And then even with blocks, they'd still be dead. So I guess fetch land is arbitrarily better here, but it really doesn't matter. They're probably just dead. We'll save targets upstairs. Let our triggers go through. The damage is being done. If our Misty Rainforest untaps, I feel very, very solid that they're just dead, so... yep. Alright, well, they're probably just dead. You may block, opponent. They don't even block. I respect that. I respect it. The Tideshaper doesn't deserve that. Chomping for nothing. Nobody wants to do that. Alright, against Merfolk, we're obviously going to want explosives. Grazer is pretty decent because it blocks as well as ramping us, and that can be quite relevant. Pithing Needle to name the Fairy Conclave, or Aether Vial, or Mutavault doesn't seem that bad, even if we were to just naturally draw it. I don't know that we would ever search for it off of a Saga, but to be honest, we might even be boarding out Saga based on their Tideshapers and other possible interaction, like Spreading Seas, for example, so I don't mind having access to a Needle here. I think it turning off Aether Vial or a creature land could be relevant enough that it's worth having just one. And Ghost Quarter for a similar reason. We can use this to interact if we need to. That said, I'm not interested in bringing in something like Force of Vigor specifically for Aether Vial, as otherwise it's dead. The Pithing Needle has multiple targets, which makes it different. And then Endurance will often be able to surprise block and kill a Merfolk, which might be valuable enough, but to be honest, it might be better to just try to get to Titan and slam it. So I think that Sakura Tri-Scout's actually pretty good here, though, so I don't really know what we're cutting for the Grazers. Maybe we only want, like, 2 Grazers just for blocking. We can try them on Explorer. Not too hard, though. I think Explorer's fine here to help us get to Explosives mana and bridge our early turns here. I think we do want to trim a couple Sagas, because Tideshaper is a very annoying card against Saga. Don't know that we want to trim them entirely, but, I mean, it's definitely reasonable. And we don't have something like Expedition Map to try to set any up, like, interesting lines up, you know, by fetching Saga off Titan, as we saw in Game 1, so maybe just having 0 Sagas against them is probably the move. Try to play around Spreading Seas a little bit. Let's see, 2 other cards, huh? I mean, we did bring in exactly 2 Grazers. I think they're good, though. I think we could trim 1 Pact as it gets hit by Force of Negation, so we don't want to be relying on that card. Maybe an Explorer? There's a lot of 1-drops, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I guess Explosives on 1 would hurt us, but we're probably playing Explosives on 2 to hit Silvergill, Adepts, and different types of Lords, so maybe it's just Explorer. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. We'll trim an Explorer, and we'll go. We'll get him. Do we want the Endurance? I think probably not. We do have a Explosives in our hand. We have the turn 1 1-drop. I mean, yeah, we're going to keep this. We'd like to draw a bounce land, or just a couple of lands off the top, like land Garenbrig or something, which is also the reason why we're playing a 4th Garenbrig, is because of situations like this, where Garenbrig just lets you easily get to Titan. Our opponent plays Tideshaper just off the bat, the 1-mana 1/1. Well, I mean, we can Shock and Grazer. Hey, there's our bounce land, that's great. I don't plan on exposing it early, though, as our opponent can Tideshaper it or whatever, so we're not going to put it into play with this Grazer trigger. And I guess we might as well just put the Ghost Quarter in play. And we'll just pass to our opponent. I guess having the Breeding Pool in play allows our opponent's Tideshaper to get +1/+1. I didn't even think about that, but it doesn't make a difference. We're going to be blocking it regardless. I guess if they play a Lord here, it's probably still worth it to block, to be honest. Chalice on 1. Okay. I mean, okay. Don't really mind that. I totally forgot that they sometimes play Chalice in the sideboard. Maybe we do want Force of Vigors after all, huh? And of course, we just draw more 1-drops. Yeah. I don't even think Chalice on 1 is the best number for them to put it on against us, but we could kill their Chalice by playing Explosives on 1 with 0 colors off of Ghost Quarter or Sunhome, which is interesting. I still don't want to expose our Growth Chamber to a Spreading Seas or Tideshaper either, though. I'm just going to play the Growth Chamber and pass. Not the Growth Chamber, the Sunhome and pass. Holding on to the Growth Chamber is what I was trying to think. Funny that we can still deal with this Chalice if we wanted to. I guess maybe playing Chalice on 1 using the Sunhome and blowing it up this upcoming turn could be a good choice, as that would let us... I guess it depends on if we top deck and untap land. If we top deck and untap land, that would let us play Grazer and put the Growth Chamber into play. And ramping our Growth Chamber out is much different than... Oh, we can't block now. Is much different than just playing it out. because it doesn't cost us a land drop if we do that and our opponent destroys it. Dryad is interesting. Yeah, I mean, we don't really have a choice but to play Dryad here. We're going to lead on the Growth Chamber, though, in case our opponent has Dismembered to kill our Dryad. We want to float our mana here and have one land drop already in place so that when we play Dryad, we'll immediately get our second land drop without our opponent ever getting priority. We'll pick up the Ghost Cooter here just in case we want to use it. I don't think that we will, as one land will let us just cast Titan here, so probably not, but good to have the option, I suppose. And we'll just pass it back. At least our Grazer gained us 2 life, because there was a turn cycle where our opponent didn't attack with their Shaper because it wouldn't have done anything, so... You know, ramping a land in 2 life ain't bad, and if we ever get this Master out of play, then we'll be pretty good. Damping Sphere is annoying, but I'm glad that we have the Dryad in play already. Now Explosives on 2 is looking way better than Explosives on 0. Another reason why holding it is probably a good choice. Attack with the Master. You should totally do that. Alright, we'll just take the damage here. Interesting. So, we didn't draw the land anyways. I was going to say if we draw the land, it might be better to play Explosives on 2 anyways, but don't have it, so don't need to worry about it. Alright, well, I'm just going to play Explosives on 2 here. Of course, using Dryad ability to make the colors. Thank you very much. And we'll hold it up. This way, our opponent can't just get another Master into play or something like that. No reason to attack with the Dryad, as it's the reason why our opponent is not attacking with their Master. Quite possibly. If they just swing for 5, I might even just straight up take it so they can't play another 2-drop this turn. Very glad our opponent did not have Force of Negation, by the way. That would have been pretty devastating. And at end of turn here, we will definitely be cracking Explosives. Maybe in combat, we'll see. But definitely at end of turn, at least. They probably attack with just the Tide Shaper. They don't attack at all. Okay, well, I mean... Yeah, we'll pop the Explosives. Now, any untapped land source will let us cast Titan. Another bounce land would let us cast Titan because we can float with a untapped source, pick it up with the bounce land, and then play it as our second land for turn and get a second mana out of it. So, bounce land does it, untapped land does it, Garen Brig does it. Lots of options here. Third Titan does not do it, though. That I will say. Are we just swinging in? We may not be able to block if our opponent plays a Master anyways, so I'm kind of inclined to just attack and double strike our Dryad here and put our opponent to 16, which is a Valakut relevant number for sure. Trickster. Well, I guess our opponent does not want us attacking with the Dryad in the first place. Yeah, that's fine, I guess. Would be nice if we could play one of these 1-drops as just as a chump blocker, but oh well. Hopefully we're about to gain another 2 life from Grazer. If our opponent just slams a second Master, or, you know, something along those lines, then it'll be a little sad. Lord of Atlantis is basically the same thing as well. I'll yield through the turn here. Hey, we're getting more Grazer value, so we gained 4 life instead of 2. Pretty good 1-mana card. Gain 4 life, play an extra land. Not bad, not bad. Sylvian. Alright, untapped land to slam this Titan. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have the, oh, Pithing Needle kind of sucks here. Oh, we can't even cast it because of our opponent's Chalice. Cool. I guess we're passing so we can block the Sylvian. I think that's how that works. Let's see. So whenever it attacks, they draw a card. Yikes. So even blocking it doesn't stop them from drawing from the attack. Kind of sad. I'm like 90% sure our opponent has a subtlety here to answer our Titan once we cast it anyways, so... what's funny is, despite the fact that our opponent is playing Chalice on 1, I still think it's reasonable to have both Scout and Grazer. I think both cards are very good in this matchup. Probably having Grazer is better, but Trickster to tap our Dryad. Sure. At least they're not doing that on our turn in response to a Titan search trigger, or I guess even worse, in response to some Valakut triggers, because that would stop our Valakut triggers from resolving, but... Alright, we're going to gain another 2 life with Grazer. Probably not just chumping the 3-4 and just using our Grazer for a maximum of another 3 life. Probably blocking the 2 would make some more sense here. The only argument for against that is probably them drawing another, like, Master or something, but... I mean, whatever. And if we do top deck the untap source, we have no choice but to just slam Titan and hope it works. So, yikes. Oh, they have another Trickster? Petty Theft. Yeah. I don't even know what we want here. Garrison. Well, if our Dryad was still in play, that would allow us to do the things we need to do here, but I am pretty sure we're just dead. We can't even play our 1-drops to block thanks to Chalice. We play Dryad, we block, take 4. I guess that's not lethal, so... I mean, we gotta do what we can here. Again, we're doing the thing where we play the land first. We'll play the Dryad and hope they don't have Subtlety. They don't. We'll play the Ghost Quarter and we'll pass, and hope we untap. It's the best that we got. I assume our opponent would just attack with everything, even if they don't draw a Lord or a Master here. Probably worth it to get us down to 1 and lose one of their 2/2 creatures or whatever. We eat this one up, chump this, take 4. Trickster. Alright, well, we're just dead. I mean, sure. Despite our opponent's Chalice on 1, we were actually very close to winning this, which I find quite amusing. Alright, so they have Chalice. That makes me a little more interested in Force, but not by a whole lot. I think Grazer's probably better than Scout, but we can't always block, so that's not obvious. Scout also lets us flash in a bounce land at instant speed to save something from a Tidechaper ability, for example. Not that I would want Saga in the deck regardless because of that, but... I think we want the Grazers, but maybe not the Scouts, just to play around our opponent's Chalice on 1. And we'll take another Explorer, again, to play around that. I think it's probably worth it to have the second Force over a Pact as well, because our opponent can just as easily play Chalice on 0 and turn off Pact, and Force also does still hit Aether Vial, so it's not completely dead. The Chalices make the Force a little bit better. The Pithing Needle, I'm not really sold on, especially if we have Force for Vial, but I think I'll still give it a shot. It could be wrong. Pithing Needle does nothing against their board state, which is the thing that I'm most concerned about. I think maybe it's better to have a Scout over the Needle. Either a Scout or the 4th Explorer. I think it's probably a Scout. I think that, on average, games against Merfolk are not going to revolve around Chalice on 1. Despite the last game that we just played. And we get to be on the play this time, which is actually great for us. We have a double Amulet hand, which is nice. We have Force for Chalice / Aether Vial. I mean, we're definitely keeping this. We can even play a turn 2 Force here. We can play turn 2 Azusa and a Force here if we wanted to. Or just a turn 2 Titan, so... We might be able to transmute Tolarios on turn 2. Now I'm thinking about it, actually. We play second Amulet, play Bounce Land, play Azusa, pick up the Bounce Land, obviously. Play Tolarios, float blue, play Bounce Land as 3rd land for turn, pick up the Tolarios, transmute. But we probably wouldn't have enough mana to actually cast Titan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, I think we'd be too short. Our opponent leading on Conclave is very good for us, actually. Titan. Ugh, that's not Titan. That is not Titan. Alright, well... Our opponent didn't lead on Vial either. We're gonna play our Amulet here to play around our opponent playing Chalice on 1 again. And we'll play a Gruul Turf and play Azusa land here, probably. We're definitely playing the Cavern out. I don't know if we're playing the T-West out, though. pick up the Gruul Turf, of course. Play Azusa, leaving green floating, because green is just obviously the better color. I mean, that's not even debatable. Let's see, so Tolaria West would put us up to 3 mana, Gruul Turf is 7, 3 to transmute leaves us 4, so we can't really do anything with that. We probably just need to... I guess next turn we can play Tolaria West, Gruul Turf, and then probably still be able to transmute. So here we're naming Giant to play around our opponent having literal counterspell, I suppose. And we'll just pass. Yeah, next turn we can lead on Tolaria West, float 2, play Gruul Turf, pick it up, 6 floating, play Gruul Turf, 10 floating, pick up the T West, use 3 down to 7 floating to transmute for Summoner's Pact, cast Summoner's Pact, and hope it resolves. That would be our turn 3 plan here. Our opponent has Mutavault. I was expecting something like this, hence the Pithy Needle. Don't know if it's going to be relevant. They're tapping out here, which is great for us. Chalice on 1. Look at that! Look at that. Alright, let's hope our opponent doesn't have Subtlety or Force of Negation. Or let's hope we just top deck a actual factual Primeval Titan as well. Of course we draw 3rd Amulet right after our opponent plays Chalice on 1, because wouldn't have it any other way, am I right? Alright, I am not playing around our opponent having anything here, because it's a turn 3 double Amulet Titan. Like, this is literally just lethal if they have nothing. I feel like it would be pretty bonkers not to just play into it, so... Again, it's very important that we float with the Gruul Turf and then pick the turf back up, and then play it as our 3rd land and use the last play of the Gruul Turf to pick up the T-West. Otherwise, we won't have enough mana to do what we need here. Our opponent has not yielded here. I mean, I still don't think we should play around anything. Like, if we get explosives, what are we actually trying to do here? The problem is, if our Titan doesn't resolve, we need to top deck a bounce land or a Garenbrig, and then another Titan, which is not really that super likely. Our opponent probably plays like 3 or 4 forces, and probably 2 or 3 subtleties. I don't really know how many subtleties they've been playing. I don't really keep up with Merfolk lists, sadly. Subtlety would be fine because we can still pay our pact. Unless our opponent has Tideshaper. Strange. I don't think that getting explosives makes any sense here, though. It's either just going for it or the explosives. I think we're just going for it. If you got it, you got it. Alright, we'll take a Titan. We'll play Titan. Leaving a red floating because, heck yeah. Let's see the subtlety. Well, at least we know for sure we're drawing a Titan, so all we need to do is top deck a single relevant land and we'll be good. Let's hope our opponent doesn't have Tideshaper. No, they can't cast Tideshaper because of their own Chalice on 1. That's freaking awesome. I guess they would have to have exactly Cavern of Souls plus Tideshaper. Well, alright, go. We'll swing for 1 if we can. I think this Zeus has been out. Aha, take 1. That's right. I guess they could still have Damping Sphere. Which we have... Oh, we can't cast Force. I was going to say which we have Force for, but... we don't. Tideshaper. 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 Please play Tideshaper. Harbinger of the Tides. Okay, they're bouncing our Azusa, it looks like. That's how that works, right? Okay, so if they flash it, it costs 4, but otherwise, it just costs them 2, and they bounce our Azusa. That is fine. That we don't mind. We can deal with that. Alright, let's not lose. That was our main worry, is that we were going to lose to this pack trigger. Otherwise, we're still in, like, decent shape here. Not perfect shape, but and we know we're top decking Titan, so we'll just yield through the turn, because there's literally nothing we can actually do here. If our opponent makes us, we'll force pitching Azusa, this Chalice, and, like, a Damping Sphere or something. If they were to play it. Now we're kind of at the mercy of our top deck, though. I guess any enter the battlefield tapped land also lets us cast Titan here, so there's that. And at least our opponents using this subtlety here cost them an extra card. So they got 2 for 1 to delay our Titan by 2 turns. Hopefully. We'll yield through the turn here. You want to cast a 1-drop? I dare ya. I'm gonna hit 5 here because it feels to me like they might be about to cast a Damping Sphere, and I think we probably need to force that if they do. Spreading Z's. Yeah. I think maybe we're supposed to force that too, to be honest. Like, it's the most anemic Force of Vigor in the world, but if we top deck Bounce Land, Garen Rig, or any enter the battlefield tap land like Valakut, and we just have Titan here, this force can't get hit by our opponent having a Force of Negation either, since this is during their turn. So, like, I feel like this just has to be done. If we top deck the land and slam Titan, then we'll be in great shape for it. And they can't counter our Titan this time, although, to be honest, Subtlety doesn't counter, it just puts it on top or bottom, so, like, the only thing they would realistically have here is Subtlety, so. Really sucks to have to hit a stupid Spreading Seas with Force of Vigor, but it might be the right choice. Any land that enters tapped. Any land that enters tapped. Grazer. Yeah, I'm just gonna throw that one into play. And I guess we probably want to play the second Amulet as well. I don't see a reason not to. Alright, here we go. I'm surprised they didn't Subtlety our Arboreal Grazer. They could have gotten so much value. Our opponent's very confused. They're like, why did they just Force a Negation? Not Force a Negation. Force a Vigor, a Chalice on one just to play an Amulet and a Grazer? Like, what was the point of that Force of Vigor? Another Spreading Seas. Alright, now we'll just top deck Bounce Land and it'll be totally fine. Specifically, a green Bounce Land. That's what we're going to top deck right now. Too easy. It is just too easy. See, this is how you know when you're a pro Amulet player, is you just say the card that you're going to top deck, and then you just top deck it. Like, let's just be honest. If you can't do that, then you're just not very good at playing Amulet. That's just how it is. This is pro-level play right here. And I'm saving our Growth Chamber from the unfortunate fate of being in play with a Spreading Seas attached. Nobody deserves that, so. And I could go for a Summoner's Pact into a second Titan here, but that plays into our opponent having Force of Negation. They don't have Subtlety because they would have already cast it, and I'm not worried about anything at 1 mana that kills our Titan. We probably even kill them through a Dismember here, so I'm actively choosing not to put more Titans into play here, specifically because of the card Force of Negation. I mean, otherwise I'd definitely be going through the Titan chain here. But yeah, I mean, you'd be crazy not to go for it this time, right? After all this? Part of me is really tempted to haste the Grazer here, but I don't want to get too cute, so. And here we'll pick up the Stronghold, I do suppose. We'll let this blue go. Sorry, blue. Had to be sacrificed for the greater good. Admittedly, we just spiked the Growth Chamber off the top, so I don't think that anything about what we're doing here can be called the greater good. Right, do you have the Suspend card? You got Suspend, opponent? Because if you don't, it's over. Get Vesuva copying our Garrison. Do the whole double strike thing. I don't really care how we stack these triggers. It doesn't really matter. We only need 1 activation of the Sun Home anyways, so just autopiloting here. Oh, wait. Here's our 1 Sunhome activation. You know, we might as well activate Sunhome on Grazer, too, just because, why not? We could give our Titan double strike. There you go, Grazer. You were important, see? And again, I think it's fine to just pick up the Sunhome here. I don't really care for picking up the Vesuva, so let's see if this is lethal. I guess Dismember would make it 8. And then Double Strike would put that at 16. So I guess Dismember does technically stop them from dying, but I mean, it doesn't actually kill the Titan either, so yeah, that's just game. Whew. Too overpowered. Just too overpowered. Well, anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this match, because Lord knows I did. That was just too good, and I'm excited to play the rest of the matches. Let me know what you think about playing that Red-Green Titan Shift deck. Leave it in the comments below, and yeah, I'll see you guys for the next match. It's the Red Face Menace, signing off.